Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome. Today is October 7th, 2021. I am Sally Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. I hope everyone's having a good day wherever you are. Okay, so let's get started. Today, I want to talk about what is one life lesson you wished you'd learned as a child. Do you ever wish your parents, teachers, or anyone would have taught you a life lesson that would have helped you in your adult years? Now, growing up, most people learn, be respectful of others, be nice to other people, just the regular life lessons. Um, you know, Help other people for young boys or men, or when you're a young man, I should say, hold the door open. But what is one life lesson that you wished you had learned? um, Eleanor Roosevelt has a quote where she says, "Do one thing every day that scares you. Make your heart race. Try something new. Push yourself. Feel your fear. Let it motivate you to be better. The butterflies you feel as you do these things will only give you wings to fly." And I read that quote about a year ago, and I thought that it was interesting. That she's saying do things that'll make you soar, but doing something that scares you. So is that something that you wish you had learned to do when you were a child, doing something that may terrify you but would help you in your adult years? For instance, being able to speak in front of people and give speeches. There are some entertainers who, even before they go on stage, they still have stage fright. So what is the one thing that you wish you had learned? And do you think that your parents, um, I'm not going to say taught you the right way, but do you think that there are things that your parents miss teaching you? Yes, there are parents today who don't teach their children respect and what have you, but again, I'm talking about things that you would have learned when you were younger that would help you in your adult life. And Crucible Man, I see you are here today. Welcome. You are the first one. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if you want to jump into this conversation, that's fine. If not, I will keep going. And thank you for the like. So, all right. So, there are other things that we learn, when we're growing up. Do what you say you're going to do. It's not your job to please everyone. Learn how to lose um, gracefully. Um, Being creative. There's just so many things that you learn as a child. And they all seem to interconnect with each other, because if you look at something like respect, and this is just my own personal opinion, if you look at something like respect, um, you know that goes hand in hand in treating someone gracefully, treating someone with kindness. um, so these are things that, hello, OJ, how are you? These are things that lead you into adulthood, and hopefully whatever you learned as a child, when you are an adult, or when you are a teenager, whatever it is, preparing you for life. So again, I ask, is there any life lesson that you wish you had learned as a child, or is there, let's turn it another way, is there any life skill? Are life lessons and life skills, are they the same thing? you know or are they different? Is there one life lesson that you learned that you wish you didn't? Is there one life skill that you learned as a child that you didn't learn? So those are my questions, and Crucible Man wants to talk. You have the mic. Okay, and Crucible Man is not on, so I'm going to keep going. And OJ, all right.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
OJ. How are you? Wait, hold on one second. No, Crucible Man, you are not muted. I don't see you on at all, so not sure what's going on. Okay, OJ, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I would like to say that, now, on being an adult, I see a lot of things which the others of my age are more kind of better off than I in certain aspects. But then I realized that their parents did not teach them the values in life, and so probably that's the reason why those guys are kind of better off. So so at times I feel that my parents should have taught us the wrong things, or the what we have learned, the right things. Instead of that, if they taught us something wrong, I think we would have been better off, I mean, per se.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think there's a difference between a life lesson and a life skill?
Is I know that there is a vast the difference between a life lesson and life skills. That's a different department, or this chapter altogether. But I've seen, when I was in school, I used to hear my one of my classmates. He used to boast, like, see, when my dad had come to the city, he just had 500 rupees in his pocket. But now you see, he has this, he has that, and and all the luxuries in life. And why? Because he doesn't pay the taxes, he doesn't do this, and he knows how to dodge the law, and then he's well off. So I said, wow, this is something unique.
Okay,
Whereas
all
whereas
right.
my parents, they 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 give us the education and the life learning by the sweat of the brows, and probably that's the reason why we are what we are, and he is what he is.
Okay, all right. Crucible Man, did you want to say something? I see that you are on now.
Hello?
Hello, you are on.
Yes, you listed a lot of really good life lessons. And I'd like to think my parents taught all or most of them. So I don't think as kids we missed out on getting the major life lessons, like treat people with respect, be kind, be true to your word, do what you say you're going to do, those kinds of things. But one of the things I think I would have liked my parents to have done differently, particularly my mother, was regarding the quote you had for Eleanor Roosevelt, is to spread your wings a little bit more, take more risks, be a little bit bolder. She never wanted anybody to move very far away from where we grew up. She never would come out and say, I don't want you to do that, but she would send very strong messages of what her wishes were. And we were very sensitive to that. So I wish there would have been more encouragement to be a little bit more color outside the lines a little bit. But I think the major life lessons she gave us. But as far as life skills are concerned, I would like to have learned how to play a musical instrument. I would like to have learned a foreign language. And I'm not blaming my parents for the fact that I didn't do those things. I certainly was free to do them as an adult and didn't do them. But the other things I think that she also tried to teach, but probably didn't take very well to me, was not to worry so much about what other people think of you. Obviously, we need to think of what other people think of us. That's important. But to the extent that it's detrimental to us, then it's probably not a good idea. And the other thing she tried to teach was not to worry so much about things you can't control. She used to say, let today's troubles be enough for today. I think that's a quote from Shakespeare. But, she said, not only are you anxious over things that may never happen, you're robbing yourself of today's joy and today's happiness because you're consumed with things that may never happen. And to this day, I still haven't mastered that life skill.
Interesting. Okay. Well, both you and OJ bring up some good points. In terms of, the Eleanor Roosevelt quote, it wasn't my dad so much. It was always my mother who was telling us, if you're not happy here, or if you want to try something else, in another city, whatever, don't, be afraid to go here or go there. And, as a child, we went on a lot of family vacations. We probably visited practically every state, um, um, in the country. And it was always my mother who was like, who wants to go here, who wants to go there, whatever. And even though my father was pretty much a homebody, he too was always someone, who said, try this and try that. In terms of not worrying about what other people think of you, that's something that we learn right off because being African American and going to the school that we did in the neighborhood that we did, whatever, we got my sister and I, we had to deal with a lot of racism early on. And we would come home and we would cry, whatever. But both of my parents said, don't worry about what other people think or say about you because, it's ignorance. And, which it was. And I learned early on that, excuse my French, I don't give a damn what people think of me, because the bottom line is I'm the one who has to live in my skin. I'm the one who has to, get up every day and pay my bills and what have you. No one else is doing it for me. But I do believe that lessons that you learn develop your personality. They develop who you become. And in terms of a life skill, one thing that I do believe is a life skill that a lot of children don't learn, but I learned this as a child. My sister learned it as a child. And I know both of my parents did. And that is, and my son has too, and I think it has helped him, is to experience failure. You have to, I think people need to experience what it's like to fail in order to succeed, if that makes sense. because you're not going to be that person who, everyone is, everything always goes your way. No, everything does not always go your way. And when, and people tend to start to, uh, break down, and literally, I see it all the time. People get upset, if they fail at something. Some people just don't know how to handle it, and my other question would be now is, does failure go hand in hand in knowing how to lose gracefully? Can you lose gracefully? Is that part of, learning how to experience failure? So I'll throw that out there for either one of you if you all want to answer that.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between losing gracefully and liking to lose. I think some people confuse that. Just because you're able to demonstrate sportsmanship and grace in a losing situation doesn't mean you're okay with losing, but it's a reflection of your values, how you grew up, your respect for other people, your ability to handle adversity. I think you make a very good point. I think people reveal a lot more about themselves in times of failure than they do in times of success.
Okay, but I'm not saying that people like to lose. I mean, no one wants to lose. I mean, I don't want to lose. I mean, everybody wants to win. But but can you show that sportsmanship, or can you just take the loss and say, okay, there's going to be another game, there's going to be another contest, whatever. There'll be another day where I may come in first instead of second. And then, like the saying goes, there can't be a first place if there's not a last place. So those are other things that uh, that I think are important. And another thing that I think is a good, I don't know if this is a life lesson or a life skill, it's important for adults to advocate. Um, you know, um, Learning how to speak up for yourself. If you're asking your boss for a raise, or you know um uh someone is in the store, and they just cut in front of you in line, or I mean just anything. If you go to a restaurant and they sit you in a certain table that you don't want to sit, do you speak up for yourself, and um, do you let your feelings and your wishes be known? I think that's another. And again, I don't know if it's a life lesson, or if it's a life skill, but I do think it's something that as children, um, is something that you learn to do. And I can remember before my son was homeschooled. My son is an introvert, very much so, very, 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 very quiet. That it literally worries me. It worries me to this day of how quiet he is. And I would pick him up from school, and I would watch the kids. The teacher would tell them, to line up, whatever. And he's in the front, and I watch him slowly, 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 slowly get pushed to the back, and he's just letting them do it. And when we would get into the car, I would ask him, why didn't you let them, whatever. He's like, well, mom, they just want to, get in front, and they're shoving me. And I'm like, well, you stand your ground. And it's something that my son has never quite learned how to do. And that worries me, so to me, this is something that when you become an adult, something that you need to learn how to do. So does anyone want to jump in and disagree with me on that, or anything? OJ?
Yeah. I a lot of thoughts just came in my mind. Okay, Harry, Christopher Man, and you. Okay, I'll start off with you. For us, my mom, there were four sisters, and each of them had two children. So we were so we were around 10 cousins, and we used to spend and most of the most of the holidays, like summer holidays mainly, all the cousins used to come to our house for a holiday. And that's the time my mom especially is to tell us that, okay, your cousins are here, you'll have to behave yourselves, which is a given thing. And moreover, like, if they want to play with your toys, if they want to wear your clothes, just let them do. So what has happened eventually is that we were always on the back seat all the time. And we would give preference, or give the uh, best, and offer the best to our cousins. So that's a thing which has kind of has kind of embedded in our minds till date, is that we always kind of, okay, like, anything's good, okay, let them have it. I want to sacrifice it. But then
Okay.
I realized that why should I?
Okay, OJ. I don't know if you're walking away from your phone, but you're starting to get faint.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it okay now?
Yes, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I'm sorry. So this is what used to happen. Like, even today, we would kind of give the best for others, and probably give the cake to others, and then whatever crumbs which is left over, we would have it. So and what has happened is, now the cousin, as we are all grown-ups, grown-up adults, our cousins still think that, okay, for me or my sister, they will not mind. So we'll have the best, we'll have the best share, or best piece, best the this portion of the stuff. And for us it's okay, whatever is available, whatever is left over, we'll have it. So this is a kind of a wrong thing, I feel. And that is one. And the other thing is that, what we have learned, what I have learned in my childhood, I try to teach the opposite, or opposite, in the sense, the better version of it, um, uh, to my children. Like, for example, like, as you had mentioned sometime back, about, if you have been asked to sit on a particular table, and then, if you don't like it, we have to stand up for it, and say, we will not sit here, we want to sit at that table. Those kind of stuff, I'm saying that my son is kind of uh, doing it. So in a way, and when he does so, I feel happy, okay, that I've been able to impart the right way of doing things, or taking life as it comes, per
Okay.
se.
All right. You made some good points there. All right. The other thing that I like to know is, when you were younger, your parents, or it was the norm, and they still say it now. Don't talk to strangers. Stranger danger. And I want to know if that's necessarily a good thing to tell children. I mean, I think that you should be aware of what is going on. Okay, we were taught to always be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what is going on. If a stranger comes up to you, step back. Because it could be. I mean, what if someone is just saying, "Can you tell me how to get to a particular store or whatever?" But do we not want our children not to talk to strangers where it could possibly hurt them when they get older, where there are going to be people that you don't know that you're going to have to talk to, when you're talking to a stranger or whomever, look them in the eye. I'm trying to make a point here. I am getting there. I'm trying to make a point. But is talking to strangers necessarily a bad thing for children to do if it's something that can help them as a skill to what do I want to say? I guess a different approach is let them know that not all strangers are bad. So does that make sense? Anybody want to take that one, Crucible Man?
Hello?
Okay. Yes. Hello.
Yes. Hello. What was your point again? I just lost my train of thought.
No, is it a different approach to
Right. Okay.
children?
I remember now.
No.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know that there's ever any really a good situation or good reason for an adult to talk to a child. I mean, if you're a teenager or something like that, that might be appropriate if somebody wants directions someplace. But if you're an adult, a stranger, an adult stranger with no previous relationship to that child, I don't know under what circumstances you'd be looking for information or anything from a child that didn't have some kind of nefarious angle to it. So
Well,
I,
well,
I don't
no,
know.
well, okay, hold on. But I'm not saying that you're necessarily going to have do harm to that child. I mean, what if it was a child that was lost or something, and you go up to that child, and that you're concerned, you're really concerned, and you're trying to help this child, find their parent, whatever. But then the child is just so fearful because my parents told me never talk to people I don't know. That's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, I think, yeah, and I guess I would. I'm not a believer in all or nothing, all or never. Don't ever do this or always do that. I don't think that's a good guideline for anything in life. But yeah, I think if you just talk to your kids and say, look, you have to use your best judgment. There's nothing wrong with talking to strangers, but you've got to kind of size up the situation. What are the circumstances? Are there other adults around? Unfortunately, some of that just comes with experience, trial and error. You make mistakes. You talk to the wrong person. You talk to the right person, and you learn over time to trust your instincts on who to talk to and who not to talk to. So I would never say never talk to strangers, but I would certainly strongly advise against it unless there is extreme conditions like you're lost or you've got some other distress situation on your hands.
All right. So, do you think that a life lesson that you learned when you were younger, and again, we talked about bullying before, and it's taken on in a completely different level because of social media. But do you think that the lessons that parents are teaching their children, hopefully today, about bullies is different from the lesson that we learned when we were growing up about bullies? Because once again, we didn't have social media, you know, computers weren't invented. Well, they were invented, but not, like in every classroom and things like that. You didn't have one at home. So, I mean, do you think that that's another life lesson, or do you think learning how to navigate bullies is a life skill? If I can separate the two.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it goes back to, what our mothers and fathers told us when we were kids is you always treat people with respect and you always treat people with kindness, but it doesn't mean you be a doormat or you roll over or become subservient. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to be able to defend yourself. You need to have confidence that your convictions are correct and not to back down from anybody if you think you're in the right. On the other hand, one of the things my mother was very adamant about with all of us as kids was she would constantly emphasize how important it is to apologize when you're wrong, and she would make a point of saying it's not a sign of weakness. It isn't anything bad. Now you don't go around apologizing for things that you didn't do. Or things that aren't your fault. But if you know that you've done wrong or you've disrespected somebody, there's no harm in apologizing. And as I've become an adult over the many years, I'm constantly struck by how difficult it is for people to admit that they were wrong or to genuinely apologize. And I don't mean I'm sorry if anybody was offended. Well, they were offended, and they were offended. So don't qualify it and don't quantify it. Come right out with a genuine apology and say, I'm sorry I did that. I know that was wrong. I know that hurt you. I'm sorry for that. Most people don't have the self-confidence. They see it as a sign of weakness or deficiency of some kind if they're admitting that they're wrong. And I think if more people were taught that life lesson about apologizing when you're wrong, the world would be in a hell of a lot better shape right now.
Okay. All right. You made a couple of good points. Is anybody, OJ, you want to make a comment on what Crucible Man just said? If not, I have a question about food. So.
Okay, I just this is a short point regarding bullying and bullies. I remember I told my son when he was in school. I told him that if anybody tries to bully you, you would have to fight back or kind of give it back to him, because I do not want you to come home crying and telling me that this guy did this thing to me. I will never. I mean, that I would always be by your side, and I'm always there for you. But I want you to learn from now. If anybody tries to trample your to stand on your toes, you should know how to kick them on the shin bone. I mean, not this is not literally like hit back or fight back, but then yeah, you should know your stand, your boundaries, and do not let anybody this trample you. So this part, of course, my parents did not teach me, but then I realized that this is something which I need to know, and that's why I try to inculcate the same with my children. And as far as talking to strangers is concerned, since my son has just started his professional this career, I've told him umpteen number of times that you should go out and meet people and talk to people. And okay, and then the context which I'm telling you, it might be different different from that of yours, especially you solid blue sister, because in India we do not have the racial thing. Oh, you're a black, I'm fair, or I'm white. We don't have that. But then what we have is, as I mentioned a couple of days back, about the caste the system. But then for us, we do not believe in caste. So what I tell them is, go and meet people, talk to them, because you never know in future which person is going to be beneficial for you. So I've tried to give my professional this contacts to my son. But the good thing is that the good thing is that he tries to create his own contacts from this early age. I have learned that at a much this later stage in life. So I meet people, I talk to people, and then and so much so that if need be, those guys can help me out. If not, I'm always there. I'm always there for them, for if need arises. So that kind of a relationship I've created over the years. And those kind of leads or contacts I wanted to pass down to my son. But then I feel that he does not, he appreciates that. But then at the back of his mind, I know he will not utilize them. Yet he wants to do the same thing on his own. He's learned the trick, and he wants to create and develop his own kind of a networking
Okay.
of people.
Well,
So
I
this is
definitely,
this is something which I have learned over the years, and I'm trying to impart that with my children. But then in our growing up years, we didn't this concept, it was not there at all. If that makes
okay.
sense.
No, it does. And and this is why I say, that that I do believe that children should be encouraged to, speak to adults. And again, I'm not saying, the person, the stranger that's, hiding behind the tree in the park or something, but there may be times when, an adult may have to talk to a very young child. And I don't think that a child should necessarily have to fear that adult, but definitely be cautious. Now, I wanted to ask you guys about food, and this may seem silly, but this is another life lesson. Um, did your parents teach you to eat healthy? I mean, was it, you have your vegetable, you have your starch, you have your meat, whatever. Did your parents teach you, don't eat so much junk food, whatever? Did they teach you to eat healthy? Because I think this is another, life lesson that you need that does affect you definitely when you get to adulthood. So, Crucible Man, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's that's an interesting question, because back when we were growing up in the 60s and the 70s, you didn't have yet the health craze. I think that came probably maybe in the late 70s and the early 80s, when you had the Jane Fonda tapes, and being healthy had become quite popular, and having healthy diets became popular. But when we were growing up, we basically ate everything, and we were all skinny kids. There was nobody obese in our family. We ate the same staples that everybody else eats. There was nothing where it was off limits, or my mother overemphasized eating greens or fruits. Now, she emphasized it. I mean, she certainly was, you if you're hungry, have a glass of milk or have a piece of cheese. You're not going to eat Twinkies or Ho-Hos or things like that. But she didn't say you can't have pizza. We didn't get a lot of fast food because we had 5 kids and we just couldn't afford it. But there was not any real going out of the way to emphasize healthy eating, because I don't think there was we didn't have a child obesity problem back then. Kids were much more active than they are now. And so I don't think there was any great urgency for dietary guidelines or guidance on the part of parents. We were pretty much free to do whatever we want, but that was because we were already pretty healthy, and my mother was never going to, serve us donuts for dinner or something. So there was never any real glaring need to make a priority over healthy eating, at least not in our house.
Okay. All right. OJ, you want to say something?
Yes. This is pretty quite funny actually. Uh, when we were kids, my mom used to make sure that we have the vegetables, and there is one particular vegetable which is the bitter gourd. I don't know whether you guys have it in states, but bitter gourd is a vegetable, and it's the name itself, you can know it's very this bitter in taste. And for us, we start when our lunch would start off with this bitter gourd and with rice, and then the rest of the stuff. So whenever I mean, I remember a couple of times I said no, no to it, and for 1 week my lunch was only bitter gourd and rice. If you don't have it, the choice is yours, but the lunch is just bitter gourd and rice, and that's it. So we were kind of drilled into this was kind of drilled into our heads that we should have vegetables in equal quantities as far as with compared to proteins like meat or fish, eggs. That was there. And the second thing is in India, the concept of fast food or junk food came in pretty late, probably in the late 90s, or mid 90s or late 90s. The McDonald's and KFC and Burger Kings, those things had come to India. So prior to that, we knew nothing. So till then, we all had home cooked food, for lunch and dinner. Right now, for my kids, for them, uh, they have the choice. So at times they said we want to have pizza for dinner, or a burger for lunch. So but then I allow them to do it on condition that you're having it. Then for 1 week you will not have that. If for 1 week you're going to have home food, and then maybe one day next week you can have this pizza or burger or whatever you want again.
Okay. All right. Well, growing up, we did not eat that much fast food, and there weren't really, the amount of fast food restaurants back then compared to, what you see now. You can see, 5 on one corner, whatever, or even more. But we ate dinner, as a family every day, and we had our, our vegetable, our starch and our meat, whatever. And oddly enough, it was my father who was on the whole vegetable kit, whatever. But I just want to know because you have, a lot of children, at least here in the United States, where obesity, is a problem. And I know a lot of that is, has to do with, having to, eat a lot of fast food, um, which of course is, you keep eating that stuff, is just not good for you. So that was interesting. So the other thing that I wanted to know is, in terms of sharing, okay, OJ, you were talking about, sharing, with your cousins, and sharing is, I will tell you, I have a hard time sharing. I to this day, I have a hard time sharing, and even, with my son, when he would have friends come over, I would tell him, whatever you don't want someone to play with, um, put it away. If you don't want, because if something gets broken or something, which one of his favorite toys did get broken one time, and he was, really upset. And I said, whatever you don't want to play with, you don't want someone to play with, put it away. And that's how my sister and I, when we were growing up, that's what my mother would always tell us. And whatever you don't, so and so's coming over, your cousins are coming over, or whoever's coming over, whatever you don't want someone to play with, put it away. And my sister and I would literally just, put everything in our room, and we would just lock our room. But I have a very hard time sharing. And one reason why I have a hard time sharing is I have found that when you let people borrow something or you're sharing something with someone, people don't take care of it. And that's one thing that bugs me is when if I loan something to someone, I don't get it back in the same condition that I loaned it. So I go back to what my father would always say: I do not loan, I do not borrow. And even though he was mostly talking about money, I've tried to do that with everything. If you have something that I like or whatever, I'll just go to the store and I'll just buy it, or I just won't have it, whatever. But I just find that when I tend to share things, or when I tend to loan things, I don't get it back the same way that it was given. And OJ said, blame it on their upbringing, and I do. One time, a friend of mine and her daughter and my son, we drove out to San Diego, and that was when the Nintendos were out, and they were popular, and each kid had their own Nintendo, and they had their games and what have you. And my son, he knew, these things are expensive, so you play with the game, you don't want to play with that one anymore, you take it out, you put it back into his little pouch, you put it away. So we get back home, and I noticed that my son, when I'm on the freeway, I noticed that he fell asleep. So when we get back home, and my friend and her daughter, they get in their car and they're gone, whatever. And I'm looking in the back seat, and I see all these Nintendo discs that are just like, some of them are on the car seat, some of them are on the floor. And and he said, Mom, I didn't do that. And I knew that he didn't do it. So I called my girlfriend and I said, was so and so, I'm not going to say her name, was she playing with my son's games? So she calls her daughter to the phone and she says, yes. I said, well, did you not know how to put them away? And she said, well, and she started, well, I'm sorry. And I said, okay. So I told her mother, I said, next time she comes over, she's not allowed to touch any of my son's things, because that's just rude. So she ended up, her mother ended up having her daughter, send me a note where she was saying she was sorry and sent it to my son and what have you. But again, this is what I'm talking about. And this is why I have a very hard time sharing. And it just bugs me. That is just something that just bugs me. I've been called selfish. I've been called stingy, whatever. But I'm sorry. I have a very hard time sharing. Anybody want to comment on that? No? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
your this last portion of thing reminded me of a quote which read some time back. You, if I take a stand, it's not because it's my ego, but it is my I call it self-respect. If the word which I'm calling, the thing what I'm saying is my self-respect. For you, it might be for you it might be seems to be my ego, but well, I can't help it if you look at it as an ego, but I know it's my self-respect. So 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 that's it.
Okay.
So I mean, so you don't. It's not that you're rude or anything. You have your self respect, but this person, he or she, they do not have any self respect. That's why they kind of have thrown the things around and messed it up.
And I agree with that. I again, when I was growing up, I was taught that you take something out, you put it back. If someone lets you borrow something, you take care of it, and give it back to them in the same condition that you received it. And I have just found over the years that people don't do that. And and adults are worse than children. And again, that's why I say I am not someone who likes to share. I am a very hard person to share with, because again, I just find that people tend not to respect your things. Okay, hello, feisty one, welcome. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask is, were you taught, or do you think this is a life lesson, or do you think this is a skill in terms of holding a grudge? And I bring that up because when I was thinking about this subject last night, I am someone who I will hold a grudge. I can hold a grudge forever, especially if it's against something that someone said to me or something that someone did, whatever. I am not one of those people who will just automatically say I forgive you. Some people see it as a character flaw, which it probably is, But I am someone who I will hold a grudge. I may not bring it up to you. I won't be someone who will necessarily throw it in your face, but sometimes I do. But I am someone that holds a grudge. So, do you think that's a life lesson that your parents should teach their children not to hold grudges? Anybody want to take that one? Yes. Okay, Crucible Man. Okay. You should be able to unmute yourself. Hold on one second. I'm not able to unmute you.
It looks like I'm unmuted.
There. Okay. There. Okay.
Yeah, as far as holding grudges, I would always tend to take that on a case by case basis. I mean, there are certain people in my life, there's not very many of them, thankfully, that have done some things to me that I find very difficult to forgive. They're more acts of betrayal than comments somebody made to me. I tend to be able to get over those things because they're just words. But one of the things my mother always taught us was that by holding a grudge, you sometimes do more harm to yourself than you're doing to the person who you're holding the grudge against. And again, I would just take them on a case by case basis. I would never say never hold a grudge, and I would never say always hold a grudge. I think it depends on what the situation is and who it's with. Some people, you don't have the luxury of holding a grudge. I mean, what if your husband or your wife said something unpleasant to you or insulted you somehow, and you really, really were hurt, or you really, really were pissed off? There's no real practical utility in holding a grudge against your spouse or one of your kids or one of your good friends. So I think you have to take them on a case by case basis. But one of the things my mother always emphasized was grudges in holding something against somebody will eat you up before it'll harm the other person.
Okay. Well, I can honestly say that every grudge I have ever held and am holding is not eating me up at all. So that I can honestly say. So I mean, there's just so many things growing up. There are just so many things that we learn as children, and there are things that we pass on to our children. And there are some things that that our children can teach us. But I do believe that the main life lessons, and again, this is just my own opinion, that you learn or should learn when you're growing up is honesty, definitely good manners, healthy food, how to eat healthy, respect, losing gracefully, responsibility, and I'm going to throw in here, and I'm going to sound like a hypocrite a little bit, but I am going to throw in compassion and forgiveness, up to a point though, up to a point, because even though Crucible Man said, that words, that something are just words, but there are words that hurt. There are words that people say to you that can just grind you to the core. And those are sometimes some things that you don't get over, especially if you hear some of those words when you're a child. And some things, you just don't, get over. And, even if a friend said something, whatever, there are some things, in my opinion, that, you just don't get over. So again, that is my opinion, and this is just me. So having said that, does anyone want to say anything? Feisty one, I know you joined us late. Do you want to make any comments? You usually have some nice and interesting comments. Yes, no? Okay. All right. So does anyone want to make any last comments before we wrap this up? Anybody? Okay, Crucible Man, what would you like to say? You have the mic.
Many people out there who don't have this to kind of as a regret, but one of the things my mother used to emphasize a lot is to take care of your friendships and to always make sure that you are valuing them over the long term. In other words, you may not feel like picking up the phone, you might not feel like putting that card in the mail, you may not feel like having lunch or dinner with a person because you're too busy or you have too many other friends and things going on. And as somebody who has come to live to regret that, you do reap what you sow. And later on in life, you do have the value of those friendships if you took the time to take care of them and do the little things over the course of many decades that allows friendship to stand the test of time. And I was selfish when I was young. I had the world by the ass, excuse my language, and I had lots of options, and I could kind of pick and choose how I wanted to follow up with my friends, how much time I wanted to spend with them. And it was really, in retrospect, very short-sighted. And I've come to regret not being a little bit more mindful earlier in my life of the value of friendships later on. In other words, you're going to manifest down the road what you do or don't put into it right now. And as somebody who didn't do a very good job of that, I think that's a pretty good life lesson.
Okay, then you have made a very good point. All right, well, guys, I am going to wrap it up. Today is Thursday, so this is my Friday. And once again, thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. I think we did have a very good discussion, and I appreciate your input. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Always speak your truth. I'm Solid Blue Sister, and this is my turn to talk. Bye. Yes, Crucible Man, it was a good discussion. And you also have a great weekend, OJ. Each discussion teaches us a lot. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you two always have something to say. You surprised me yesterday, OJ, when I said, do you have anything else you wanted to say? And you were like, nope. Oh, boy. And Crucible Man, I hope you're figuring out that mic, that mute and unmute. You should be able to get that. Okay, OJ liked the show. All right. Well, you guys enjoy your weekend. And again, thank you so very much. Bye.